Once again, we're out here on Boone Lake with David Mullins, Elite Bassmaster Tour member. I tell you what, this guy's made a little money on the tour and he knows what he's talking about, and right now he's going to tell us all about getting ready to go fishing, getting your rods and your reels and making sure you got the right line on the right reel and with the right combination of lures. Right.
Now, you know, I constantly get the question, why do you use a spinning reel over a bait casting reel? Why do you use a bait casting reel over a spinning reel? And for me, it's the weight of the lure. Okay. You know, the lighter the lure I can get away with, I'll use a spinning rod, or the lighter line I need. But for something like, you know, this is the, like I said, the Giant Dog X or a big other top water, I use a bait caster. And my setup for this, I use fluorocarbon line 99% of the time with my fishing. But the thing about topwater fishing is fluorocarbon sinks. So it inhibits the action of the topwater, so you don't get that. So what I like to do is I've actually, in the last 2 years, I went to a braided line. A braided line will actually float to keep that.
And you can actually feel the braid on that.
Yeah, you can feel the braid. That's a 30-pound sunline braid. Okay. So I use it and I tie a little, this is just a little short fluorocarbon leader. Okay. A little short leader like that won't inhibit the bait, but if you have a full, you know, a full spool of fluorocarbon, it actually sinks and it does no good. Okay. So I use a fast reel. This is a 7-1 Shimano, and this is a Bassmaster Elite XX Tour versatile rod. So you can find this stuff at Watson's Marine. They're local. They have all this stuff, and you know, those guys will help you up there. But that's my setup. You know, for heavier baits, I use bait casters. For lighter baits, I use spinning rods. Okay. And we were jig fishing earlier this year. Let's talk about the setup on the jig rod as well. A jig rod, you know, you're going to be using a little bit heavier line. And what I've got here, this goes back to the fluorocarbon I told you I use. This is 18-pound sunline fluorocarbon.
And it sinks.
And it sinks. Yeah. And it's no stretch, so you really get to feel the bait a lot better. And when you set the hook, the fish is coming. There's no stretch in that line. This is a 1/2 ounce, just a little homemade jig, an 8 5-to-1 Shimano, really fast. So when I flip it in there, he bites. You know, I can set the hook and it's coming back because there's so much line coming on this reel at one time. So it's really fast. And this is a perfect pitch Bassmaster Elite XX rod. It's a stiff rod, what you need to be throwing a big worm or a big jig.
Because you're throwing it in there amongst the trees, amongst the rocks and everything, so you need something with some backbone.
Right, and this lure has some weight to it. So you got to have something that actually moves that line and moves that lure when you're setting the hook. So a stiff rod, big line, that's what you need for that jig setup.
And for the average everyday fisherman like me, what's the biggest mistake you see when they go out? Is it line selection?
Yeah, they don't use a heavy enough line. And then they're constantly complaining because they broke one off. Right. Well, you can't expect to get a big fish out of a tight area with little line. So don't be afraid to use big line. You know, we got watercolor. There's no reason to use light line. They're not scared of it.
David Mullins, tip for today, go big or go home. That's right. And that's what's going to happen if you set the hook on a big one and you ain't got the right size line. That's right. That's our tip for today with David Mullins, our professional angler, here on Daytime Gone Fishing.